Hey, what's going on guys? How you doing? I hope your week is going strong. Today, I want to continue the trend of hopefully helpful videos. Recently, we've spoken about how to stay motivated or put the systems in place to keep your training going, as well as how to make home workouts more fun, more enjoyable. And today, I want to tackle the next most commonly asked question, which is typically when someone is ready to train, they're like, yep, let's do it. I'm going to make my changes. They then ask the question, how do I lose weight? Or how do I gain weight? And this is something in the fitness space that is often made unnecessarily complicated. Typically so somebody can sell you something, some sort of magical fat loss program, when the reality is the basics, what will get you results, are actually incredibly simple. All you need is the foundation and consistency. So in today's video, I'm going to do my very best to try and break this down and make it as simple to understand as possible and give you the absolute basics, the foundation that you can use and start applying today to get results. Also, don't forget to check in again. Let me know in the comments down below how your training has been going. You guys updated me last week. It is fantastic to hear you guys already smashing it. So let's keep it going. Alright, quick disclaimer before we begin the video. Of course, if any of you have any sort of medical conditions or if there's anything nutritionally that you should not or cannot be eating, then of course check this with a professional beforehand. But for those of you that generally speaking just have a question about, how does weight loss work? How does weight gain work? How do I go about starting the process? This is the principle, these are the foundations that apply to effectively everybody. To begin with, it all starts with calories. Quite simply, calories in, calories out. Every single person has a number of calories they burn on a daily basis. This is technically referred to as your TDEE, your total daily energy expenditure, or your maintenance calories. Basically, this is the number of calories that you burn in a day. This is individual to everybody. It's based on a number of factors. If you go online, you can find a number of free calculators. I'll link one down below. By putting in things like your age, your height, your activity level, and your weight, you can then of course get an estimate, which basically gives you a number of calories you burn in a day. For me, based on my stats and based on the fact that I'm actually pretty active and I work out a lot of the time, that is around 3,000. Again, it will vary for everybody, but this number is your baseline. This is your foundation. If you're building a house, this is the base upon which everything else is built. When you have this number, it is then very simple to begin the next process. If you want to lose weight, you simply need to eat less than you burn in a day. This is referred to as a calorie deficit. Meanwhile, if you want to gain weight, you simply eat more than you burn in a day. This is referred to as a calorie surplus. Those are two terms that are worth noting because they are often commonly used in the fitness space, so to speak. But with that in mind, that is the absolute basics. That is the ultimate foundation to weight loss and weight gain. Eat less than you burn and you will lose weight. Eat more than you burn and you will put on weight. It is literally as simple as that. Yes, there is some nuance to it. Yes, you can then take it a level deeper and you can start to fine tune things. But when it comes to understanding the basics, you work out your calories, your maintenance calories, your TDEE, and you then adjust your calories accordingly to go towards your goals. Now, a couple of things worth noting. It might be tempting just to think, all right, I can burn 2,500 calories in a day. I want to lose a load of weight. I'm just going to eat 500 calories. Don't do that. That is not healthy and nobody wants to live on 500 calories. If you want to get the best results, you want to go for the slow and steady approach. If you are trying to lose weight, the safest and healthiest way to go about doing it is simply to try and aim for around 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss per week. That is a healthy amount of weight loss, it is a steady amount, and it will ensure that generally speaking, you're burning typically more fat than you are muscle. This of course is assuming that you're also getting insufficient protein and you're of course pairing this with some kind of resistance training. More on that in a minute. Meanwhile, if you're trying to gain weight, it is not quite the same. You are instead going to sort of try and target more so 1 to 2 pounds of gain per month, give or take, because you want to be slightly more steady. There are things like dirty bulk and stuff, but I'm not going to get into the kind of complexity of that. Generally speaking, the slow and steady approach will get you towards your goals and is a lot easier to maintain. The best way to go about doing that is to simply take your calories and subtract or add, to begin with, a conservative amount, something like 250 to 300 calories. Subtract that off your TDEE, add it to your TDEE, and begin eating like that. When you eat those calories consistently and you track your weight, you weigh yourself on a daily basis or a regular basis, you'll then begin to see a trend and you'll know that your weight is tracking in the correct direction. As things start to slow down, you can of course increase your deficit, increase your surplus if needs be, but again, this should all be done on a case-by-case basis. Start small and you can always go from there. Now, once you've got your calories established, it is then down to setting up your macros. Calories can be broken down into the 3 primary macros: protein, carbs, and fats. I'm not going to go into the specific details for now because I touched on that in our calories explained video. I'll link that down below if you want to learn more. But effectively, to try and make this as simple as possible, what you want to do when you are dividing your calories into your macros is ensure that you're getting sufficient protein and you're getting your baseline level of fats. And outside of that, it's really up to you. Generally speaking, the recommendation is around 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So for example, I'm 84 kilograms. So this would be my recommended kind of minimum average protein. You can go on the higher end of the scale, which I have done personally. I like my proteins, and of course that can sort of go slightly more towards the muscle building side of things. So I average around 200 grams of protein a day, which is about 2.3 grams to every kilogram of body weight. But basically, you want to get your baseline level of protein, which ensures that your muscles are being fed while you're training, and you then want to get your baseline level of fats, which is generally speaking about 20 to 30% of your calories. That just makes sure that your kind of bodily functions are ticking over. And outside of that, you can fill it in as you see fit. Some people prefer more carbs, some people prefer more fats. Honestly, this much is entirely up to you. But once you have your calories and you have your macros, it is then down to tracking. Now, what do I mean by tracking? By tracking, I mean weighing, scanning, and logging the food that you eat so that you can ensure you're eating towards your correct calorie limits. Now, I know some people will be like, this is the part I didn't want to do. This sounds really annoying. And I get it, right? Tracking is not for everybody. And I'm not saying you need to do it indefinitely. I'm not saying it needs to be the thing you do for the rest of your life. But I will say everybody can benefit from at least a few weeks of tracking. You can gain so much knowledge, so much insight, just simply by tracking your intake for a few weeks. Some people will often say, I don't need to track, I've just been eating less. And for some people that works. But for some people, eating less still doesn't create enough of a deficit to actually see results. So then they'll often get discouraged because they'll be like, well, I've already been eating less and I'm still not losing weight. The answer is you're still not in a deficit. There is no magic to it. It is quite simple. If you are not losing weight, you are not in a deficit. There are a couple of other things that can play into it, things like stress and not getting enough sleep, which is incredibly important. Make sure you're sleeping. But generally speaking, if you're not losing weight or you're not gaining weight, you're not in a deficit or you're not in a surplus. So when it comes to tracking, downloading something like MyFitnessPal is the easiest way to go about it. It is incredibly easy to use. You input your calories, you can input your macros. It has an inbuilt barcode scanner, so you can scan the foods that you eat. And if you keep your recipe simple, it's incredibly easy to do. Most of my things that I eat on a daily basis are comprised of like 4 or 5 ingredients. Take an average meal: steak, potatoes, some oil so that I can cook with it, some seasoning, and some spinach. That's basically all that goes into it. I scan that, I put it into my app, and it then goes towards my totals, and I then know that I'm on track. Also, it's kind of fun once you start going. It's very much like a video game in that, like, when you level up, you get XP points to spend, and you're like, ooh, where do I spend these? I want to spend them in this really cool skill. I want to spend them in this magic. I want to spend them in this stamina. Instead, you're like, all right, where do I spend my food today? There's some proteins, there's some carbs, there's some fats. You can generally make a game out of it, so it can be fun. But even if this is not something you want to do long term, if you do it for just a few weeks, the insight you can get from it, often you'll have foods where you might have previously thought you were having a small portion, and suddenly you're like, whoa, that bowl of cereal is how many calories? And then suddenly you get that clarity, so that once you get to the point where you stop tracking food, at least you can be like, all right, cool, I know roughly speaking what a portion looks like, and it then gives you that insight. So I would highly recommend everybody at least do that for a period of time, because then you can guarantee you're working towards your calories. Also, make sure you track, everything. A lot of people will often forget to track things like the spread they put on their toast, or the milk they put in their coffee, or the juice that they drink. And then while it might sound a little bit convoluted, honestly, that is often where people slip up. They'll be like, I've been tracking my stuff, I'm below my calories, I'm still not losing weight. And the answer is, you're probably not tracking everything. So with that being said, that is the foundation. That is the foundation to either weight loss or weight gain. Establish your maintenance calories. Establish either a small deficit or a surplus, depending on what your goal is. Ascertain your macros, which you can then do through one of these calculators, one of the free ones. If you type it into here, you can scroll down and it gives you different macro splits depending on what you want: high carb, high fat, high protein. And then begin eating to that and tracking to it and monitor your progress. As your weight increases or as your weight decreases, depending on your goal, you can then of course make adjustments. If you start to hit like a plateau, you can further decrease your calories and you can keep going from there. What I will say is, do not make any rash judgments. If suddenly one day your weight doesn't change, don't suddenly think you need to reinvent the wheel. Try and stick with stuff for a number of weeks and then make intelligent adjustments from there. Now, to round out this video, I put together a few quick FAQs, some questions that typically come up when talking about this sort of stuff. So hopefully, if there's a few remaining things that you guys want to ask, I'm hoping this list will cover it. If I don't mention something, put the question down below and I'll try and give you the best answer. But quickly rattling through these ones. Number 1, how many meals should I eat? The answer is however many fit into your day. The best nutrition plan is the one that you are able to stick to. There is no point somebody saying, hey, you need to eat 5 meals when you're like, I can only fit 3 meals in. Ultimately, for most people, again, if you are an elite level athlete, there is of course some, nuance to meal timing and like the number of meals you have. For most people, like you or I, so long as you get your calories in a day, it doesn't really matter. 3 or 4 meals is generally speaking a safe bet, but do what works for you. Next up, hey, should I be doing keto or intermittent fasting or paleo or carnivore or like whatever this diet is? No, you don't need to. If you want to, you can, but there is nothing magical. Those diets do not have any kind of magical hidden properties. It is just often people see results with those because by going to something like keto, and people often eat a lot of carbs, they find that suddenly by not being allowed to eat carbs, they are inadvertently putting themselves in a deficit which yields results. Same thing with intermittent fasting. Sometimes by restricting the window in which you can eat, you suddenly don't have that evening window to snack. So again, you put yourself in a deficit. There's nothing magical about them because they still all revolve around the same principle of being in a deficit or a surplus. So again, pick what works for you. If you like keto, that's great, but I love my carbs, so I'm gonna keep eating them. Speaking of which, question number 3, are carbs evil? No, they're not. I like bread, I like pizza, I like chips. I'm gonna keep eating my carbs. You can eat them if you like them too. What about rice? Do I have to eat brown rice to be healthy? No, you don't. If you like white rice, eat white rice. If you like brown rice, eat brown rice. Basically, make it fit your macros. What about training days? Should I eat more on training days? The answer is, again, if you're an elite level athlete, there may be some value in adjusting your nutrition so that you can fuel your heavier days. But for most people, myself included, I prefer consistency. I eat the same thing every single day. I don't mean you have to eat the same foods, but I eat the same calories every single day just because it is easier. Generally speaking, we will stick to things if they're easier. So do whatever makes most sense for you. Not having to worry about adjusting your calories on a daily basis based on whether you're training or not makes your life so much simpler. Okay, so when I'm tracking, do I have to weigh my food raw or cooked? The answer is do it based on the packaging. Typically, if you turn over your food and you look at the back, the nutritional data will say something like, this is based on 100 grams of cooked chicken, or this is based on 100 grams of raw chicken. So long as what you're scanning into the app matches what is on the food, it doesn't matter whether it's raw or cooked. The main thing is make sure the data matches up. And then final question that often comes up, all right, so let's say I'm tracking and I'm following my macros. What happens if a family dinner comes up or it's someone's birthday? How do I get around this? The answer is just go and enjoy yourself, right? Some people are so worried, they're like, I can't go to this birthday deal, or if I do go, it's gonna mess with my calories. Don't worry. In the grand scheme of things, when you think about a trend line, when you think about losing weight, it's gonna happen over a number of months, not over a number of hours or days. So one day off plan or 1 or 2 days off plan here or there in the grand scheme of things in a trend line is going to mean nothing. So do not worry about it because honestly, experiences in life are incredibly important. Sharing those moments with friends and family is far more important than for one day going, I can't do this because I need to stay on my calories. Live your life, enjoy yourself, and that will also make it easier to stick to stuff because of course long term, it's not going to feel like you're missing out on everything that is fun. So when that happens, just go out, enjoy yourself. Sometimes you can be sensible. You could be like, all right, I might just not eat lunch this day to kind of give myself a calorie buffer. You could do that, or you can just make peace with it and be like, you know what, I'm going over one day, it's fine. And the next day, just get back on the program and keep it moving. Keep in mind, if you do have a big day, you'll often have like a bloated number on the scales for a couple of days. Often that's down to like water retention and salty food. Don't worry about it. If your numbers fluctuate on a daily basis like that, it's nothing to worry about. We're less worried about the daily trend of weight gain. We are more worried about the long-term results. So with that being said, hopefully that's been helpful. I'm hoping that I've been able to take something that is often made quite complicated and made it simple. If there's anything else that you guys want to know that I haven't kind of touched on, let me know and I'll either answer it in comments or do a follow-up video, but hopefully this has been helpful. Anyway, don't forget to stay tuned to the socials. Make sure you keep it locked for plenty more. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. And again, catch you guys next week.